Ladies and gentlemen, I actually feel honored to have this guy on my show. He's a really big real estate guy. He teaches people how to buy real estate units, bulk, multifamilies. He has over 2,000 units himself. I was yesterday on a phone call with a group of people talking about real estate and talking about how we can get these units. And I think Rod is the perfect guy for that. I think his story and I think his like what he can tell you how to get from, you know, starting from zero to where, you have like 20 units, 25 units, or even hundreds if you stick it out longer with them. I saw some guys that been on your show that went from like 7 units to like, what I mean, like what 300 units in like 3 years. I was looking through your stuff, studying it. But I'll
Thank
let
you.
you start off and start
Or,
talking.
or 3,000 units, candidly.
Yeah.
As I was telling you before we started recording, they're called my warriors, my coaching students, and they own almost, I think we're close to 300,000 units under my tutelage, and I'm very, very proud of. But let me tell my story because I think it'll lend some framework to why my students are successful and talk a little bit about my successes and my failures. Is that okay if I drill down on that a
Go
little
ahead,
bit?
man. Dude, please.
Okay. All
Please.
right. All right. So I'm a Dutch immigrant. I was born in the Netherlands, think wooden shoes and windmills. And I immigrated when I was 6 years old with my brother Albert, my mother's Vansha. And we ended up in Denver, Colorado. That's where my mom met my stepdad, and we moved in with him. And we didn't have much. In fact, I remember eating expired food. We shopped at an expired food store, true story, and drank powdered milk with our cereal in the morning because it was cheaper than real milk. And I remember, I wore clothes from the Goodwill and the Salvation Army all the way through junior high school till I finally lied about my age when I was 14 because I was tall and got a job flipping burgers at Burger King so I could buy my own clothes and ultimately buy a car, which every kid that age wants. And I'm sure you've got listeners had it harder than I did, but I knew I wanted more. And luckily, my mom was a great role model because she was an entrepreneur. So she babysat kids so we'd have enough money to eat. But with her babysitting money, she actually invested in the stock market successfully. She did IPOs with no formal education. And she also invested in real estate. And her first real estate acquisition was the house right across the street from us that she bought for about $30,000 when I was 14. And then when I was 17, she told me she'd made $20,000 in her sleep, that it had gone up in value 20,000. And this was when 20,000 was a lot of money. And I'm like, what? You made 20 grand? You didn't do anything? Screw college. I'm getting into real estate. So I went out and got my real estate license. And I was going to be rich in real estate. And I was still living at home. Well, my first year in real estate, I made about 8 grand. My second year, 10 grand. But my third year, I made over $100,000, which back in 1980 was some pretty decent change. So what happened between year 2 and year 3 that caused me to 10x my income? Well, what happened was I met a guy. It was a broker I was working for. I was dating his daughter, and he taught me about the importance of mindset and psychology, how really 80 to 90% of your success in anything is your mindset. It's your psychology. Only 10 to 20% is the mechanical stuff we talk about on our podcasts. And, fast forward to today, I've owned over 2,000 houses that I rented long-term. I own thousands of apartment units now. But in 2006, my net worth went up $17 million while I slept. And you might say, wow. And I said, wow. And I got a head so big, I could barely fit it through a door. I thought I was a real estate god. And when that happens, God of the universe will give you a nice little beat down. Well, that was 2008. I lost conservatively $50 million in 2008 and 9. And so what I'm known for talking about on my podcast, I'm blessed to host really the largest commercial real estate podcast out there. And what I'm known for talking about is the mindset it took to have 50 million to lose in the first place. And maybe more importantly, the mindset it took to recover from that, because it was, I lost everything. So I'm happy to drill down on some of those points, if you like, Kenny. Because they're the same points, the same things that I did strategically to recover from losing 50 million after I got out from under the rock I was hiding under for a couple of months, feeling sorry for myself. But it's the same strategies that if you're listening that you would use to actually go kick ass and take action and make things happen for yourself. So the first thing is, if you come to one of my boot camps, I've got one coming up in LA in January. It's the only live one I do a year. But if you come to it, or one of my virtual events, the first thing we do is goal setting on steroids. Because how do you get anything if you don't know what it is? Here's the sad reality, Kenny. People spend more time planning a freaking birthday party or Christmas party than they do designing their lives. Doing your goals is designing your life. And because you got to know what it is you want, and you've got to know why you want it, because that's how you push through fear, and that's how you push through limiting beliefs. Or, maybe you're comfortable, and we all know the comfort zone's a nice warm place, and we also know nothing freaking grows there, right? And so, you've got to have goals to push through that. And you've got to create what Napoleon Hill in his book Think and Grow Rich calls a burning desire, or a hunger. And that's how you make things happen. And that's how you get out of comfort to make things happen. And so, that's the first thing we do. And by the way, let me mention this. I do a goal setting workshop typically every year on January 1st or 2nd. And it's in my link tree. If you text the word links to 72345, it's at the bottom of there. There's a guide you can download. I'm not going to try to sell you anything. It's a really powerful thing if you're not interested in multifamily, for you to do with your family, for you to do with your kids if they're over 10 years old, for you to do with your spouse, and get aligned on your, on what it is that you want, and do some planning. It's very, very powerful. So again, if you text links to 72345 or go to rodslinks.com, it's at the bottom there. But it starts with goals. You've got to know what it is you want. You've got to know, more importantly, you got to know why you want it, because it's the why that'll drive you. But Kenny, the next piece is you've got to make a decision. And what I mean by that is you don't dip your toe in the water with something. It's not a 1 foot in, 1 foot out kind of a thing. When you make that decision, it's done. And when it's done, you're committed. And when you're committed, you're like a train on a track towards whatever outcome you're looking for. Now, if you're not committed, you get knocked off track, right?
Because one thing I wanted to come to mind is the biggest problem with most people, while you're on that committed part, is that most people can't even get to the committed part because they don't even know, they're so afraid to start. But then before that, they don't even know how to start, which caused them to be afraid to start. And then they never really go anywhere because they think it's hard. So how you, who mentored a whole bunch of people, have you came across there? Of course, you have came across people that had been afraid to start, but they want to do something. They want to change.
The key starts with goals, brother. The key starts with goals. You got to know what you want, because otherwise you get locked up in fear. Us achievers, we call it stress, but it's fear. You get locked up in fear. Maybe I'll talk about limiting beliefs in a minute, because it's a funny conversation, but they hold you back. And that's why you've got to get motivated. And the only way to motivate is to have outcomes that excite you, and have reasons why you want those outcomes that excite you. And so that's part of the process I go through in the goal setting, be it you do it outside of that or you come to one of my events. But it starts with that. And then obviously you've got to decide what vehicle you're going to use, Kenny. And I teach people how to buy commercial real estate, multifamily, senior housing, student housing, self-storage, commercial types of real estate, retail, industrial flex space. That's what I teach, but primarily multifamily, but the disciplines apply to all commercial real estate. But you've got to decide on your vehicle. We are approaching incredible opportunity in this country, incredible opportunity to buy businesses. For example, there's 80 million baby boomers getting old, and they have, a lot of them have businesses, and there's opportunity to buy businesses, opportunity to buy real estate for sure. Multifamily is going through a meltdown right now because of the interest rates, and there are incredible deals coming. I mean, incredible deals. I'll give you an example. We've got an asset in San Antonio, and 200 units, and the one right next door sold for 43 or 44 million in 2022. They are down to 28 million now, from 43 to 28, and it doesn't even make sense until it comes down to about 24. So that's the kind of deals we're already seeing, in my space. But you got to pick your vehicle, you've got to get motivated, and then you got to make that decision, like I said. And when you make a decision, the Latin root for the word decision means to cut off. It means, like, a great analogy would be, if you're going to attack the island, you burn your ships because you're taking their damn ships home. That's a decision. You're done. It's committed. There's no escape. And that's when you really make things happen. So, like I said, the next piece is the decision. And then the piece after that is you got to take the first step. Dr. Martin Luther King said, you take that first step in faith, the next step will be revealed. You don't have to see the entire staircase or the entire journey. Lao Tzu said the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, but that sometimes that's the most important decision of your life, is to take that first step. And, I get a lot of analytical people in my business, and you know who you are if you're listening, and I love you. You're some of the most successful people in my business because there's a lot of empirical component to what we do. It's numbers. However, However, you also know how you very often have to check off every single box before you make a move. And you can't do that. You've got to recognize, I'll give you an analogy, that you can drive all the way across the United States at night with your headlights only seeing 60 feet in front of you. And you can make it. Other people have made it before you. You may have some obstacles, but it's doable. And it's the same way with my business or any endeavor that you take, but you got to take that first step. A lot of people fear failure, Kenny, and we really fail our way to success. I'll talk about failure more in a minute if we have time. But there was this. Here's what I want you to fear: regret. Okay, because this life is not a dress rehearsal. We don't want any regrets. Fear that. Fear being in the same place you are right now 1 or 2 years from now, unless you absolutely freaking love where you are right now. There was this nurse in Australia. She was a hospice nurse, so she was taking care of patients when they were about to die. Her name was Bronnie Ware. And she asked him a question, Kenny. The question was, do you have any regrets? And she wrote a book about it. It's a bestseller. Something like The 5 Regrets of Dying is the title. And the number one regret was not living the life I could have lived, living someone else's life, not doing what I know I'm capable of. I can't think of anything worse than that. That's what I would fear, is that. And let's talk about fear for a minute. And fear, let's also talk about limiting beliefs. And I've got this prop behind me I want to grab and show you because it's just so funny for this topic. Hang on one second. So what is fear? F everything and run. That's what a lot of people think it is. I like to think it's false evidence appearing real, because it is typically. You're not fearing what's actually happening. You're fearing the emotion of fear. And I also like to think it's face everything and rise, because the one thing that mitigates fear is massive freaking action. Okay. The most successful people on the planet have fear. They just push through in spite of it. Okay. Because their outcomes, their goals, their purpose in life is more important than getting locked up in the fear, because fear paralyzes. But I also want to talk about limiting beliefs. And that's why I grabbed these things behind me here. So when I was, I immigrated to this country, I didn't speak English, and I got thrown into school, and I found out what bullies were for the first time. I got my butt kicked occasionally. And then my mom thought it'd be a great idea to send me to school in these wooden shoes and these leather shorts that the Germans wear for Oktoberfest, and of course that was crack cocaine for the bullies. So I got my ass kicked again. And then, the bullies had chased me home, and my mom had chased them off with a fly swatter. So the next day, butt kicking, and I came up with this belief system that I wasn't good enough, and a lot of people have these limiting belief systems, like I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not old enough, or young enough, don't have enough time, don't have enough money. And here's the thing to remember: if you're consciously aware of one of these, sometimes you're not consciously aware, but if you're aware that you've got one of these limiting beliefs, recognize that the acronym for belief systems is BS, because 99% of them are BS. But see, we believe they're real, and they impact our entire lives. So if you have one of these BS belief systems, drag it out into the daylight. Look at it with your adult rational mind, and you'll recognize that it has no basis in fact. It's BS, but you got to do that consciously when it pops up. I did that, thank God, because I used to be afraid to raise my hand in front of 10 kids in a classroom, and now I speak in front of literally thousands of people a year in flip-flops typically, because they're comfortable, and I'm becoming less and less of caring about the opinion of what people think. And so anyway, I can take a pause there. I'm kind of rambling on and on here, brother.
No, you're good, man. I was really like listening, man. It was just an amazing story, man. You're just
well. Let me interject something else then. Yeah. So I have, like I say, a pretty large podcast. I think we're over 30 million downloads. In my little niche, it's pretty big for commercial real estate, and I listen to 2 podcasts. And the reason I bring this up is I want to talk about focus, okay? Because where focus goes, energy flows. The most successful people on the planet have the highest degree of focus. And whatever you focus on gets larger, both positive or negative. And I'm going to circle back to those 2 podcasts in a second here. But, I get people that call me and say, how do I get out of student loan debt? And I'm like, wrong freaking question. How do you make so much money that debt's irrelevant is the question you want to ask yourself. And, they asked Mother Teresa if she was anti-war. She said, no, I'm pro-peace. You get the analogy. And the reason I bring this up is I listen to 2 podcasts. I listen to Joe Rogan and I listen to Tim Ferriss. So I get both sides of the aisle. I try to stay as balanced as I can. And on Tim Ferriss's show, He interviews the best of the, and by the way, these guys get like 20 or 30 million downloads a week or something. I mean, they're insane. They're the largest
That's it.
podcast on the
I
planet.
was looking at Joe Rogan, and his was
Yeah.
like 25 million a week, and it's like,
Yeah, I mean it's insane. Yeah, that's why I brought up the number. Yeah,
yeah,
but
crazy.
I enjoy both of them actually. And on Tim Ferriss's show, he interviews the best of the best in the world. It's very intellectual conversation. You know, best athletes like Michael Phelps, the swimmer, NFL, NBA players. You know, billionaires like Ray Dalio, heads of the biggest companies on the planet like Zuckerberg. Actors like Ed Norton, Hugh Jackman, Arnold, Jamie Foxx. And he deconstructs their success. So he has them explain and deconstructs how they became successful. And I started to hear a pattern, Kenny. They almost all meditate. What does meditation enhance? Focus, right? And so, focus is a really important thing. I don't know about you, but I'll be sitting watching some stupid thing on Netflix and I'll be scrolling through my social media on my phone, which kills your focus because your brain is making these micro decisions all the time. And so, just pay attention to that and pay attention to what you're focused on, which is why the goals are so important. I tell people, get pictures of your goals, put them around you so that your focus is on what you want, not what you don't want. When I lost everything, it was real easy for me to focus on the pain. I just use it for teaching now. But and the next thing, just got maybe two more points here. The next thing is playing to your strengths. In my business, multifamily real estate or commercial real estate in general, there are lots of different hats you can wear, and it's a team sport. You could be the person finding and underwriting the deals. Maybe you're analytical and you do the underwriting. You could be the person building relationships with brokers and sellers and investors to raise money for these deals. You could be the person that's got some construction experience or project management experience or any management experience and manage the asset after you buy it. So there's lots of different hats you can wear, but the key is to play to your freaking strengths. Don't try to build your weaknesses. Hire, align, or partner for your weaknesses. Why? Because success will become much faster as everybody's working in their strengths. And when you work in your strengths, you love what you do, candidly. And when you love what you do, work is play. The best partnerships I see in my business are someone that's analytical with someone that's outgoing. Like me, I'm the mouthpiece, and I partner with CPA and very analytical people, and I'm the one that's out there because I'm an extrovert. I love to be around people. But you get an introvert with that's analytical with an extrovert that likes to talk, and that's a match made in heaven. And so, how do you find out what you're strong at? That you could do a Myers-Briggs profile, you could do what's called a DISC profile. Tony Robbins has a DISC profile, and just figure out or ask a friend. A friend will be happy to tell you. But when you're playing in your strengths, you love what you do. And when you love what you do, you're passionate about it. And passion is required to influence people. And so, again, play in your strengths and operate from that passion. And, and that, again, affects your ability to influence, but it also impacts your creativity. And it's the fuel. So when you hit a speed bump, if you're passionate, you love what you do, it's just a speed bump. You're not derailed by it. So figure out what juices you and inspires you and make sure you're doing that. And I'll tell you, passion minimizes or even eliminates fear. And the another piece is who you hang out with. You've heard the adage, you are the sum total of your 3 best friends or your 5 best friends. I'll tell you, it's the truth. You show me your 3 best friends and I'll show you who you are in every aspect of your life, your health, your happiness, definitely your finances. And here's the problem though, Kenny, people will default to a group that they went to school with or that they work with. And sometimes those people have their own limiting beliefs or fears, and a fear of losing you, fear of feeling less than if you succeed. And sometimes it's family. And so I'll tell you, love your family, but proactively choose your peers, right? I want to be around people that think what I think is hard is easy, and so I remember when I was losing everything, I was in Tony Robbins' Platinum Partnership at the time. It's his high-level mastermind. And there were people that were killing it in that crash of 08, 09 crash. They had just, figured it out. They were killing it. And they're like, get up, you puss, 50 million, schmillion, go get up and go make something happen. That's who you want to be around when the going gets tough, or even when it's not tough. That's the reason my coaching program's so successful, because they build each other up. They help each other. There's a deal closing almost every day and they get praised and validated.
I kind of wanted to talk about that, that coaching program. Like I was waiting, how is that for somebody who doesn't know real estate to come in? They got money in their pocket. They're afraid
Yeah.
to take a leap. How does that start out for them?
Well, they have to learn, obviously. Okay, you don't have any confidence until you have competence. Okay, so they've got to learn. I mean, I'm blessed to say, not only do we have probably the lowest cost coaching program, but we have our success. Our success pretty much eclipses everybody else combined. Like I said, we're at about, like I said, almost 300,000 multifamily units owned by my students. But it starts with education. Okay, and education is an important piece. But something we discovered is almost as important is the connections. So we discovered my most successful warriors were the ones that were the most connected in the warrior community. So we started doing all sorts of things to facilitate those connections. Like I was just in Phoenix literally 2 weeks ago with a few hundred of my warriors at an, we networked, we went deep dives on different asset classes that people are buying, like senior housing. I'm getting into senior housing in a big way, and self-storage and industrial flex space, those little mini warehouses and construction and development. But we discovered that those connections between warriors, we did an analysis of a big chunk of our deals that these warriors had closed on. 98% of them were done between warriors. 98%. And so, it really
You
is
think
who
that
you
speeds up the
hang out
learning
with them.
process? You
Oh,
think
absolutely. If there's a question, they can throw it in the Facebook group and they get a dozen answers like that. And if I don't like the answer, I step in and say, "No, I think that's, you may want to think about this." But most of the time I don't have to, because we've got so many successful people in there. My boot camps, I have panels on stage to answer questions. I typically do about 3 panels a day. And that's what will be the case at my live boot camp in LA in January. And there's probably $3 or $4 billion in assets represented by those panelists, and they're all my students. Again, I'm bragging a little bit just because I'm proud of them. They're just killing it. But it starts with the education, Kenny. Well, actually, no. It starts with figuring, getting the motivation to learn, and that motivation comes from goal setting. Okay, that comes from getting juiced, getting motivated, getting exciting. I help them identify their identity in the business. We do an exercise for that at my boot camps, and so, it starts with that, with the mindset piece, but then the next piece is the education. It's the connections. We connect our warriors together. We send them the warriors that live in their state so they can go have a meal with them. We do Zoom breakouts where they can randomly speed date and meet other warriors. And so, but you can do that yourself. Forget about my warrior program. You can go to your local meetup groups, your local real estate groups, and meet people there as well. So, but the key is to get around people that want more out of life, because there's so many naysayers out there. I don't know about you, Kenny, but I get hate every single day. Now I get more love than hate, thank God. I've got a wall in my office in my other building here at my compound with hundreds of thank you cards from people. But there are a lot of people out there that aren't happy with their lives, and they're, either entitled or they're not doing well. And so you get a hate too. But the key here is
if you don't have
getting
any
around.
if you don't have any enemies, you're not doing anything right.
Yeah. Yeah.
To tell
Yeah.
you the
Yeah.
truth,
Yeah. It's sad. It's sad, but true.
it's that people, I mean, when my podcast started taking off, people would hate me for no reason.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah. I get
don't
I get the
know,
same thing. It's
I
crazy.
don't
Some
know,
of the
I
things
didn't
they
know why.
say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like when you're starting to really, people don't. I think people don't like looking at something they want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes them feel less than. It's sad.
It does.
Honestly.
They
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
want to do what you want to do, but you're not scared. You're not
They're
scared.
afraid but they're afraid to do it,
Yeah, they're
and
afraid
that's
to
why
do
my
it.
focus is that's why my focus is mindset, because
Yeah,
if they can get their mind right, if they can get motivated to self-motivate and create some discipline for themselves, success is inevitable. It doesn't, my most successful students aren't the smartest. They're not the ones that live in the big cities. In some cases, they're not the ones that start with a lot of money. They're the ones that just go kick absolute ass and go make it happen. My catchphrase is massive freaking action. They go take massive freaking action, and that's how they do it. But yeah, I mean, if anybody listening has an interest in multifamily or commercial real estate, my link tree has a ton of free resources. It's if you text links to 72345, LINKS to 72345, my boot camp site is there for my upcoming LA event. The price for that's like less than the price of a dinner, but there's a bunch of free books there as well. And these are best in class books. They're not like some, crappy stuff that people put out.
Get off, I know we're about to get
Yeah.
off, but I really want you to just walk through. Somebody signs up for your one-on-one mentorship.
Sure. Okay.
What does it look like for them? Just like
Okay.
a
Okay.
high level synopsis.
Sure.
Like,
Sure. Sure.
I sign
Sure.
up. What does the next day, the next week look like for
Well,
me?
I would encourage somebody to go to my boot camp first. And like I said, my boot camp's in LA, January 23rd, 24th, 25th. It's the only one I do live every year. I don't know when this episode will air, hopefully well before then. But that's a great first step, because there'll be 1,000 people there that, that want more out of life, great networking, and it's drinking through a fire hose. I will tell you that. But I've really never had a complaint other than the room's too cold or the food sucked or something like that. I've had 17,000 people attend my boot camps, but so that's a great way to start. But if you're interested in my coaching, here's how it works. If you do the one-on-one coaching, you get a one-on-one coach that owns, at least 600 to 1,000 units themselves. They're one of my students. I've trained them. We have a group coaching, a set of calls. It's like a college course. It's a 90-day set of 3 calls a week in the evenings, teaching you every aspect of the business. And we've got all the recordings for years that you can go back if you want, see different versions of a particular topic, like underwriting or due diligence or asset management or syndication or whatever. But so we've got that 90-day curriculum that they do at night. They also have a one-on-one coaching call, a coach that they talk to a couple times a month. We have, there's so many. We're always adding value. We have these warrior events like the one we just had in Phoenix, where you get together, you meet other warriors, because it really is who you know in this business. And so that's a big piece of it. We also have high performance coaching, which nobody does. Again, mindset is 80 to 90% of this. So you get a high performance coaching call every month with a certified high performance coach. That I used to do it. Now I've hired somebody because I only have so much time. But and that's such an important piece. People rave about that. Some of them say they get as much out of that as they do the real estate training. But the key to the coaching program is the community, because, there's so much money there. There's so many resources there. There's so much knowledge there. And so, that's what people say. They say that's the best part of the program. It's just the group is extraordinary. And anything you need, you ask and it's there. So, when you've got 2,000 people all over the country, really all over the world, I've got a big contingent in Canada, Latin America. I've got people in freaking South Africa, the Netherlands, other country, Turkey, you name it. Anyway, but of course the bulk of them are here. But it's the community, I think, is the biggest thing that people need to get around, whether you do it with me. By the way, if you're interested in my Warrior program, text the word crush to 72345. That's how you apply to my Warrior program, crush to 72345. But you can do this in your backyard. It'll take a little more work because you got to find people that are successful in multifamily, but pretty much every decent sized city has real estate investor meetings. They have meetups. So don't hesitate to check that out. And again, there's so many opportunities coming, Kenny. Like I said, if there were 2 of me, one would be buying businesses, because I'm telling you, there's going to be incredible opportunities to buy businesses literally for nothing down. By the way, my students buy these assets very often nothing down because they raise the money for them. So it's the same thing. It's not like a guru bullshit, where I'm saying, oh, there's nothing down deals. It's real. Because you raise the money for these things. They take money, but it doesn't have to be your own money. And so, but it's the same way with businesses, I think. And so, pick your vehicle, decide how you're going to capitalize on what's coming, but don't wait on the sidelines. Go to Rod's links or text links and do my goal setting workshop. Get juiced. I will juice you. Get juiced and pick a vehicle and go make it happen for yourself. Life's too short. This life's not a dress rehearsal.
No, you're right, 100%. And with that life too short comment and quote, I had a friend of mine, we was talking the other day, we was walking down, I live in New York, we was walking down, and he said, man, you only have one life. To not think big as possible is very stupid.
Yeah.
Take the chances.
I'll share something else. Yeah, you got to, man. You've got to. My God, life goes by so fast. I just turned 65 this year. I'm like, holy crap. Life is going by so fast. But I want to mention a couple things that you listening might not think are important, but they're super freaking important. The first one is the importance of gratitude. Gratitude, and I know you're thinking, oh, foo-foo. Well, trust me, this is how I had 50 million to lose and how I got it back. So hear me out here.
And gratitude is very important.
It's the
Very
most
much.
important foundational emotion we have. You know, it makes us stronger when we face adversity, strengthens our immune system, lowers our blood pressure, brings us closer to our spirituality. And it's how you manifest everything you want in life is with gratitude. You know, like I'll sit on my recliner every morning, most mornings, and I've got my vision boards there, and I'll just do gratitude for the people I love, the people in my life, my kids, my foundation. And then I'll do gratitude for the things that I want as if I already have them. And that's a big secret here. And sometimes I've gotten emotional being grateful for things I don't even have yet. And I know I lost some of you analytical ones on that, but this is how I had 50 million to lose and how I got it back. So ignore it at your peril. So that's gratitude. And the last thing I want to share is, unless you've got questions, of course, but the last thing is I want to talk about something else that's super important. And you know, when I immigrated, I moved to Denver, but I knew I always wanted to live on the beach. Of course, there's no freaking beach in Denver. And so, you know, I would visualize the palm trees and the sand and the surf. And 20 years later, I built this, what's now an $8 to $10 million mansion on the beach. I owned the beach on one side and I had my boats on the backside. It's called a Gulf to Bay. It was like a slice through an island. And it was unthinkable when I was 18, but I made it happen in 20 years. And that's the message I want to get as it relates to goals. Don't underestimate yourself. You know, people will overestimate what they can do in a year and massively underestimate what they can do at 10 or 20 years. And so that's
I was just about to just say that. Bill Gates said
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Bill Gates said
And so I built this place. I worked for it for 20 years. And 2 months after I moved in, so 20 years, 2 months after I moved in, I'm floating in the pool at night and I'm looking up at this testament to my ego, which is really what it was. It was to prove the freaking world I was good enough. I mean, if that didn't do it, forget it. I may as well go home. I may as well go lay down. My family's inside sleeping. This house was magnificent. The pool was changing colors. It had fiber optic lighting. There's a big waterfall from the second floor balcony into the pool. You had to walk through the waterfall to get the pool. Pool was in magazines. Big spiral staircase up through the middle of the house. Wine cellar, elevator. On the second floor, I had aquariums built around the staircase that cost me almost 200 grand. So this gives you an idea of the house. Well, I'm floating in the pool looking up at this thing 2 months after I moved in and I got depressed. And I don't mean a little depressed. I'm like, holy shit, I got really depressed. I'm like, what is going on? I've just like achieved success like times 10,000. You know, I had the cars, the Maseratis and the Mercedes and all the stuff I thought was important, the boats and the jet skis. But and my family was inside sleeping, beautiful family. So there were three things going on. And this is the message here I want to share with your listeners, Kenny. The first thing was you never achieve a big goal without having other goals lined up behind it, because without a vision, the people perish, right? A good book somewhere said that. And I didn't know what I was going to do next. So that was one thing. The second thing is it's never about the goals. You need the goals, but happiness comes from progress and growth. You know, they say the happiest days of a boat owner's life are the day they buy the boat and the day they sell the boat, right? Well, you need the goals to create that hunger to go kick ass and make things happen and get out of comfort. But it's never about that. And I didn't know what I was going to do next. So I didn't know how I was going to progress or grow. But the big thing that I want to share is I had been totally focused on me. Rod, show the world I'm good enough, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's the year I met Tony. Okay. I saw Tony Robbins. I went and saw him in Fort Lauderdale and I saw that he fed families for the holidays. And I'm like, what a concept. Do something for someone else. I'm embarrassed to say I had to be 40 to get that memo. But I went home. I called my brother because I was going to visit him for Thanksgiving in Denver. And I said, bro, let's feed 5 families. So he called his church. He found 5 families that really needed help. We bought food and toys and frozen turkeys and all that. Third family changed my life, Kenny. I go up to this shack. It was a shack. It wasn't even a 1 bedroom. It was less than a 1 bedroom. And there was this Hispanic woman there with 5 kids. She came out. She saw all the stuff on the porch. She started crying. Her kids came out. 2 of the older ones started crying. I started crying and I was hooked. And please know this is not ego. There's a real message. So don't leave. There's a real message in what I'm going to share here. You know, since then, I have fed over 150,000 children, at-risk children in my area here in Sarasota, Florida, for the holidays over the last 25 years. I provided tens of thousands of backpacks filled with school supplies to local kids. We just did 2,000 a couple months ago. I've done thousands and thousands of teddy bears to local police departments for their officers to keep in vehicles if they encounter a child that's been in a traumatic situation. And the reason I bring this up is, you know, we've been taught to believe in the fact that we must achieve to be happy. Okay. We don't have to achieve to be happy. When you are giving back, you're happily achieving. And I know it's a play on words, but it's an important one. Tony Robbins calls it the science of achievement versus the art of fulfillment. Achievement's a science. If you want to learn multifamily, get your butt to my boot camp. I'll give you the blueprint. You just got to do it, or go study whatever it is you want to learn and study it and learn it. That's a science. Achievement's a science, but fulfillment is an art. You got to figure out what juices you. For me, it's kids. For you, maybe it's the elderly. It is for me as well, the elderly. Maybe it's animals. Maybe it's the environment. Give back right now. Don't say, oh, yeah, Rod, you had money. That's why you did it. You want the money? Give back now. That's how you get the money. That's how God works. You get it back 100-fold, 1,000-fold sometimes. But incorporate giving back in some fashion. You don't have money, give of your time, and you will achieve success much faster. And you'll be fulfilled. More
man, we have to end it on that note, man. I think we both have the same mindset, and that mindset is what I love. Is like I love pursuing, I love giving back, and man,
awesome.
Like that's where I like kind of harped on the one-on-one. It's like I think people, when it comes to like real estate, one-on-one is very important. Community is very important because you're gonna get further with a community, with somebody coaching you, telling what to do, where the pitfalls are.
Avoiding mistakes,
avoiding mistakes and stuff like that. And you're proof in the pudding, man. And I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks, brother. Thanks. I feel like I did all the talking, and I'm sorry if I monopolized the conversation, buddy.
No,
I'm passionate about this stuff. So.
No, man, you did not. I was like memorized, man. I was really listening, really focusing. It's like, man, I like people who comes on this show that really knows their stuff, and you can tell you have tremendous amount of passion, and the goal is for me to learn. The goal is for the audience to learn, because there's very few times where you get somebody who's really successful that comes on something and tells you, look, I can show you how to really do this and how to get out of your life. You just got to take the step. You just got to click the link.
It's my passion, man. It's my passion. Honestly, I get so much pleasure out of those thank you cards on my wall. I can't even tell you, but thank you for having me on. Again, if you're interested in anything I do, go to rodslinks.com or text links to 72345. All my stuff is there. My podcast, free books, tons of great free books. The goal setting workshop for you and your family. You should do it, even if you're not interested in real estate. And yeah. So thanks, brother.
Thanks. Peace.